infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
If you want even more creepy, true stories of paranormal phenomenon of all types, you should check out Jim Harold's Campfire. No sound effects, no ambient music, just real people sharing their real encounters. A few of the latest episodes include a talking chicken, mind-blowing coincidences, an amazing UFO encounter, and even a dishwashing ghost. You can tune into Jim Harold's Campfire on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Into the Fray.
Yeah, it was a strange experience, but getting back to my original, what I wrote to you about, kind of going to date myself there, but it started back in 1994. I was 93. I was 15. I grew up poor, 5 kids, just my mom. She was just an inner city school teacher. Had no father. Well, I was in one of these situations, Shannon, where I grew up in a pretty wealthy town. But I was like on the wrong side of the town. It was a really weird situation. I was right on the edge of town, next to the city, and like I went to school with all these wealthy kids and everything. So one of the things I had to do, of course, that none of these my other friends had to do, is I had to start working at an early age, for money, right? This wealthy fellow in town who owned a lot of real estate, who was a really good guy, knew that I had grown up without a dad, and felt bad for me for that, for whatever reason. Not that I've ever made that an issue, but he hired me to take care of his property, so he had rental. Now, interesting enough, you've heard of the Warrens, right? The ghost hunters?
Of course.
Well, I, I worked in their house one time, changing a GFI in one of their kitchens, and I didn't realize.
Really?
I met him and didn't realize. I didn't realize it was him. I knew who she was, but I didn't realize it was him. And I remember when I left the house, the general contractor was like, whose house you were just at? I was like, are you serious? Anyway, this house is maybe a mile and a half away from where they live. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm going to tell you. It's just,
I mean, maybe.
How,
of course, considering what they had
had
stored in their house, I mean, who knows?
Oh, it could have been, So he had me work on these 3. Now, this is an important part. There were these 2 houses, and it was on the main road in town. I'm not going to name the town because I don't want people,
no need for that.
And they were right next to each other. Older houses. It was rentals, single-family home. So when one family would leave, I would go in there, and he had me, clean up and paint, put fresh coat of paint on everything. So this was on the middle. This was the one house, one of these houses I was working on. It all started one night when I would work till like 7 o'clock at night, and then my mom would come pick me up, right? So there's this one night I'm in there. Now, granted, I never felt, I was 15 years old at the time, never felt freaked out once in my life about anything, like being alone and dark, none of that. Never was once freaked out in this, right? I'll never forget, I'm in the back corner room. It's around, I remember it was like around like 6:15. I knew my mother was coming soon, and I wanted to finish this one room so the guy would pay me. Now, on the ground. You know the Venetian blinds, the like cheap ones you can get like at Walmart that with the string they pull up and down and
Mm-hmm.
they have the little thing to open them. Well, I had one of those on the ground because I took them off the windows to paint the windows, right? So I'm painting and painting. I was like, it's this weird feeling that I'd never had before. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It was like there was electricity in the air almost, kind of. It was like a chill with a little bit of like a electrical feel. And I happened to turn around and hand to God, Shannon, I watched this Venetian blind slide across the floor to the doorway to the other end of the room. Now, now I'm looking at it going, did I, that, yeah, that just happened. I was like, oh man, this is weird. And I remember being like frozen, like for, I don't even know how long I stood there and it was like just trying to figure out like what just happened. It moved with sound and everything. It wasn't a hallucination. And I remember just saying, okay, well, I'm just gonna make believe this didn't happen, finish up and get out of here. And I remember I was so scared that actually when I went in the car, I told my mother. And my mother just looked at me with a serious face. Now, most mothers you would think would be like, what are you talking about, or whatever. My mother, the only thing my mother said to me is, I don't want you working here alone at night anymore, and I don't want you working in there alone. That's it. If you want to come back here and work at this house, you can't be alone and you can't be at night. And I remember being 15, being like, well, that wasn't comforting. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I ended up finishing the inside of the house with a friend of mine. Didn't tell my friend about it, what happened. We were, like, the people who were in there before, they were trash. There were crack files everywhere. So we had to clean all that stuff up and everything. Now, remember that part, okay? Because about the family, what I just said, okay? Because they play a part in this later on. So, finish the house. That's it. I don't go and work there for years, okay? Get married, da da da, move up to New York, right? Had all that stuff happen up there, or whatever with the woods thing. My ex-wife got pregnant. We came back. What's the first house we move into that's available for rent? Because I stayed friends with the guy who hired me when I was a kid. That house. I said, yeah, it's a perfect starter house for a young couple. Not even thinking about what had happened back in the day, right? Well, it was in my head, but I didn't think anything of it. Um, and I wasn't too worried, to be honest with you, because I'm actually Russian Orthodox Christian. So in the Orthodox Christian faith, you have icons of like, Christ and the Mother of God and different saints. And it's traditional to have one in each room, right? You go to any Eastern Orthodox house, you'll see that, right? It's not abnormal. And that's how I grew up. So my ex-wife at the time actually became Orthodox. So we had an icon in each room. And in my head, from the way I was taught growing up, there's nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be fine. And, we stayed there for 2 years. Never had a problem. I redid most of the inside of the house, made it nice. I never felt anything, Shannon, never anything freaky. Had the priest come there and bless the house one year because that's a traditional thing to do in the Orthodox faith. No problems. I do remember that downstairs in the basement, my ex-wife would never go because it was a dirt floor. It was old. It was creepy. And I remember there was this guitar in the corner, this old guitar. And I remember seeing it when we moved in and saying, oh my God, I remember that guitar. It was still there since when I was 15. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to leave it. It's like part of the house. I'm just going to throw it. It was like, it didn't have any things. It was electric. So I left it, right? So we stayed there for 2 years. And it's time to move on. We find a house in the next town over that I actually grew up in. That was really nice. So we decided to move there, right? So as a favor to, the guy who hired me when I was 15, the landlord, I got the house ready for him, for the next customer, who happened to be a city cop from down here, a canine. Now, here's where it gets strange. So I'm in there one night. It's the last night I'm in there, getting this place right. The guy's literally going to move in the next day. Okay. And I remember I had like a little paper icon. I think it was of the Mother of God and Baby Jesus, right? And it was right above the window, like on the kitchen. And I said, oh, well, let me grab that. I'll take that with me. And I put it in my back pocket. This is weird. Yeah, I did shows. I haven't talked about this to many people. Like maybe my ex-wife is probably the only one who knows because it's so, I remember looking through the whole house, make sure the windows are closed and everything. I'm in the kitchen, ready to walk out the side door that led to to a path that led to the driveway. And as I'm walking towards the door, I see in my peripheral vision, clear as day, a black cloaked shadow figure, solid. I mean, couldn't see solid. Walk past the bathroom, stop, look at me, and then walk into that room from back in the day where that Venetian blind slid across the floor. And I kid you not, I remember saying, God have mercy, it's time for me to leave. And I closed the door, and that was it. Right? So I get back to the house we're living in, and I say to my wife then, I had to tell her, right? Because she's my wife. I shared everything with her. I mean, even when we got divorced, we're still best friends, and we just young. So I've always shared everything with her. And I told her, she goes, you want to know something? I said, what? She goes, there's two things. She goes, one thing I never liked about that house is that the backyard was all wood. And I never liked those woods. I always felt like something was lacking. But in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, you and every other person thinks something's lacking in the woods, right? She goes, but here's something more serious. She goes, one night I was in the living room. You were working. Because back then I would work till like 8 o'clock at night because I was young. I had 2 jobs. I had a family to support, My daughter had just been born. She said our daughter was sleeping. It was like 7:30 at night. It was dark out. And she goes, I kid you not, I was at the computer sitting and something tapped me on the shoulder. And I turned around and nothing was there. And she goes, but for some reason I wasn't freaked out. She goes, I was a little bit like taken aback, but I had just coughed it up as if I just made it up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. So now a week goes by and 2 weeks goes by exactly. It's the middle of the summer. Now remember, it's in Connecticut. I don't know if you've ever been to Connecticut, but it can get really freaking hot, and it's not like Vegas. It gets so hot and humid, like you want to die. It's like everything's sticky and everything, right? I get a call from the canine cop, and he knew the owner, the landlord told the canine cop, listen, he's my maintenance guy, call him a second cop. So he calls me up, he goes, can I talk to you about something? I said, yeah, what's wrong? He goes, well, I'm really embarrassed right now. I'm like, what? You promise you won't say anything because this could ruin my career. Now I'm thinking this guy's going to confess some kind of like crime to me. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
I'm not sure if I want to hear about this, right? He goes, no, it's about the house, right? Well, nowadays you never know. People are nuts,
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know, maybe he just had a break from reality, decided to tell me he had bodies in him, something.
That he took a use of the dirt floor in the basement.
Yeah, I took can you come help me, So he goes, did you have anything happen to you in this house weird? Now, the minute he said that, I thought to myself, oh, shit. So I said, well, no, not really. And I've known that house for my whole life. He goes, well, this place is haunted and I can't stay here. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, dude, the other night, my girlfriend was here. She won't come back here to live because she slept there for her first night the other night and something smacked her in the middle of the night. He goes, the temperature drops in the room. You could see your breath. He goes, the other night I woke up and I had to leave and go stay at my mom's house with my canine dog because it was terrified. Because in the middle of the night I woke up and I heard a guitar playing in the basement. And I was like, all right, this guy, now you have to understand me. I'm sitting there going, all right, this guy is either telling a lie because he wants to get out of a lease because he doesn't like the place, which is not normal, right? Or he's telling the truth. And for the first time, that actually, most people I would think were just setting up a story, right? But there was something in his voice. He was scared. He goes, if you don't believe me, he goes, come here right now. I'll show you. I go, what do you mean? He goes, oh, you'll see, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. Like, I want to see this with my own eyes. Because now I'm not sure what to think, right? So I go over there and I walk in the house. And the first thing I noticed was the energy, like the whole feel was different. You know, he had a bunch of like Eastern symbolism everywhere, and totally opposite from what my house was. So I coughed it up. So yeah, it's not my house anymore. Like I didn't give it too much like credit. It's just off the feel of it, right? And then I see his canine dog. Now this is a German Shepherd taught to kill someone if they have to defend their owner, right? This dog is in his crate with the door open, crying like a baby, shaking. They're standing up with his tails between his legs. He goes, I've never seen my dog like that before. And my dog has got like 5 or 10 bites on its history, like catching criminals over the past like 3 years. He's scared of nothing. He's been shot at and he keeps going. I've never seen him scared like that. So that was the first indication to me, like, oh my God, like what is going on here? Well, he goes, I'll show you, man. I'll show you. And he's all like panicky. This is a cop. Like, he's been a cop for a while who works in the inner city. This guy should not be like this, right? So he takes me to the back bedroom. That used to be my old bedroom. Now, it's the middle of summer and it's hot and humid, okay? It's hot in this house. There's no ACs in the windows, okay? He goes, watch the temperature, okay? I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm standing there, a minute and a half goes by. A minute and a half standing there saying nothing is a long time, right? I'm like, so I start talking. I'm like, dude, I don't know. He's like, no, wait, dude, I swear to God, I swear to God. I was like, all right. So I just said, okay, I'll stand here for another minute and a half just to appease him. He seems really scared. The temperature dropped so freaking much that I could see my breath in that room. I looked at him and I said, let's get the hell out of here. I'm not staying here. I said it to him. So I leave the house. That's it. I actually help him move out, get him out of there. I get him out of there. I call up the owner. Now the owner's upset with me because he's complaining. Like he wanted out the lease, this and that. And I'm telling him, no, you don't understand. I witnessed it myself. And I told him what happened. He didn't want to believe me. I'm like, why would I lie about this? I saw my own breath when it was at least 85 degrees in that room. Like, why would I make that up? I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. I'm more loyal to you being the owner because you helped me out when I was a kid than this guy. I don't know this from a hole in the wall. But what I witnessed it. I'm not going to change my mind. Boo hoo hoo, whatever. Blows over. The cop kept in touch with me for like a week and was like, please don't ever tell anyone about this because it'll ruin my career and this and that. Next family moves in. Spanish family, nice family. They love the house. Guess who moves out within 3 weeks? That family. They came home one night to their sink and their tub overflowing with water.
The sink
Flooded
and the
house.
tub at the same time?
Yeah. So, someone clogged the sink.
Oh,
Plugged the
geez.
sink. But the doors were locked. Nothing, there was no break-in. Destroyed all their stuff. Destroyed everything. So they move out. The house stays abandoned. I get a call from these 2 other cops who were ghost hunters on the side. One of them was actually on a famous ghost show on TV. Can I say the name, or is that a problem?
No, go right ahead.
If I said, they were on Ghost Adventures. When Ghost Adventures visited a certain city in Bridgeport and was visiting an old arms factory. He was the one who met him at the arms factory to tell him he's in Bridgeport. This is one of the guys who called me. These 2 cops harassed me for like a week. They had a show going, a deal with one of the TV stations, and they wanted me to be on it for their first show for this house. Because they went there and did an investigation, and they got proof with pictures and stuff. And I'm pretty sure the pictures are somewhere on the internet. It was so long ago, but I'll do a search later for you. If I find them, I'll email them over to you. I saw the pictures. They were creepy. They were. Some might say no, I don't see anything, but if you just look at it, you can see certain what looks like a group of entities playing cards at the table.
Mm.
All right. So they bugged me for like a week and a half. Now, you have to understand at that point, I'm thinking whatever was there was demonic and I want nothing to do with it. Like, I'm cool with it. You have your world, I have my world. And they were so mad at me. So finally I said, look, I'm not going to help. I'm not going to profit or I'm not going to help someone else profit off. I said it, the devil. I'm not. Because I think that's really bad karma. And not that I'm a very religious person, but I have my lines that I won't step over. There's certain lines you just don't cross. And I just feel like that's one of them. Because it is an unknown and I don't really want to know anything about it. You know what I mean? So this story doesn't end here, right? So they finally leave me alone and they harassed me so much. I finally called the landlord and I was like, listen, they did this ghost hunt on your property without your permission. It's going to be on a TV show. Like, this is how much they harassed me. They were calling me constantly, Sharon. And, I have so much respect for law enforcement, especially on the city level. That's a terrible job to have. But these guys were relentless. It's almost like they were wanting me to say stuff that didn't happen almost. Like, do you get what I'm saying? I'm not down with it. I'll tell you what I witnessed, and that's it. So I told the landlord had his lawyer write them a letter, like, don't think about doing this. You were trespassing on my land. I don't know that this show ever happened, to be honest with you. I let it go after that. Never heard from those two cops again. Saw them on TV like 5, 10 years later on Ghost Adventures, right? I was like, oh, I remember that. So fast forward now, that was 2000, maybe 2004, 2003. Okay, fast forward 15 years, 2018. I had just finished, unfortunately, our marriage didn't work out. And it was a mutual agreement. There was no lawyers involved. We split, whatever. We're still friends to this day. I see my kids, whatever. So I'm like, well, I need to make some extra money so I can get buy a house, have some bedrooms for my kids. You have to start over. It's based divorce. You start over. I don't care what anyone says. Start over. So I'm doing my thing. I'm a workhorse. I'll work. So I start bouncing because I'm a pretty big dude. I'm over 6 feet. At that time, I was like 270, like 11% body. I was a big dude. So it was a good gig for me. I'm bouncing at a bar, a famous wing bar in Connecticut. And I start talking to this random woman one night. And she's like, I feel like I know you. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm sure you've had, that line before. Oh,
Yeah.
I think I know you. Yeah, okay, buddy, whatever. You and a million other people. So I'm thinking that, She goes, no, no, no. I think we went to high school together. And I'm looking at her, and sure enough, she was right. He had just gained some weight, and I just, it's high school was like, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at her, and we start talking. And guess who lived in that house before I cleaned it up when I was 15, before I had my first experience?
Oh boy.
It was her and her family, her mom and her stepdad. He was part of a very famous biker gang. Well, her stepdad, he said, even though he was a bad man, drug dealer, violent, he loved children. He was so good to me. He treated me like a daughter. He said, John, you don't understand. I knew a part of him no one else did. Well, finally, the stepfather got caught up something, and the feds were coming for him, and they were going to hit him with the RICO laws. And I don't know if you know what that is, but that's like mandatory 15 or 20 years on the inside of federal prison. Like, your life's over. And he didn't want to go. So he with his own life. I said, really? And she said, yes. It was why. I was like, so I start telling her everything. And she's like, oh my God, it all makes sense. That was my stepdad. I go, what are you talking about? He was John. He always wanted a family, like the American family. Like, he was one thing he always felt guilty about, that he was a criminal, because he always thought that my mom and I deserved a white picket fence and, that whole thing. So you and your young wife and newborn, that's what he always wanted. He didn't bug you, but who did he bug? The cops. He hated cops. And I was like, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this makes too much sense. He remembered the guitar in the basement. He brought up that guitar. He's like, oh, I had that creepy basement that always had the guitar in the corner. It was just, you don't understand. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. She's half drunk. And she's saying this to me. Now I'm sober because I'm a bouncer. And I'm sitting there and my mouth is sore. That was basically so let me go back. I missed something. After that second Spanish family moved out where it was flooded, for whatever reason, the landlord decided to donate the house to the fire department. They burnt it to the ground. And the house no longer stands there today. But the second house does. Remember I said there was two houses?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so this is what tops it all off. So maybe it wasn't just the house, it was the property. Now, I have another witness to this who was there with me. The landlord, who I still keep in touch with, he's in his 80s, but still owns all this property, uses me as a handyman. I don't really need to do it. I make a very good living now, but I'm a loyal person, Shannon. This guy helped me out when I was young, gave me a job, put some money in my pocket. I don't forget things like that. So he asked me to go replace the screen door. I'll go replace it. So that's what he asked me to do at this other house, which was right next to the one that I lived in that burned down with all the, activity. So I go there with my friend Joe, who to help me, and we're sitting there, and I'm getting the door frame ready, and the light in the torch goes off. I'm like, what the hell? Oh, great, the bulb went up. So I go inside to go look for a bulb, and I happen to look at the switch, and the switch was in the off position. I look at Joe, I go, dude, did you hit that switch? He goes, no. I go, you effing with me? And he's like, no. I was like, well, what turned it off? I don't know. I'm like, all right, that's weird. Me again, not looking, think, all right, it was just a weird thing, whatever. So I switch it back on. I go to cut the piece of wood, on the line, and the minute I go to start cutting it, what happens? The switch goes off again. The off position down. And my friend Joe looks at me, he's like, what the? I was like, you know what the first thing I said? I know what this is, right? Just ignore it. We gotta get our work done, right? I go turn the switch on again. What happens again? Third time, I go to hit the saw, switch goes down again, light goes off. I go off and I say out loud at that point, ha ha, all right, you're funny, you got me, good joke, but we really need to get this done and get out of here. Turn the light on, go cut the wood, put the door up, leave, switch stays on, and that was it. And that I would say would be the end of my history with that property. I haven't been back there since. Because I think he actually sold it and they're building something commercial on it now. But that over a 30-year period. Can you imagine? With time in between, that house was like a strange part of my life.
So the owner never really spoke to you really truly about all these people moving out, all these strange activities, the things that you had experienced. You guys never had a real conversation about this.
I tried to bring it up a couple times. Like I did a couple times. I went over there after my divorce just to visit them because they live down in Florida during the winter. But when they come back, they always invite me over for dinner and stuff. And, because they always thought it was amazing considering the odds that, because I had my father was a textbook psychopath. He was a horrible man, did horrible things to me. And they were always amazed that, statistics say I should have turned around and been beating my kids and doing this and, doing all this. And I turned out exact opposite, thank God. Love of my mother helped with that. But he was always impressed with that. He also gave, he knew my kids had a really good reputation in town, got good grades, were involved with the community. He was the mayor at one point, so he knew all about me. So he would have me over once in a while. Every time I'd go over, I'd bring this up. And he would just laugh and change the subject. I have tried to get him to talk to me about it so many times. I feel like he knows something, and he just leaves it alone. And finally, I just let it alone. Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. It always bugged me. I always felt like he knew something.
Especially since the culmination of this story is quite shocking that he donated it to the fire department and they essentially burned it down.
Yeah. I always thought what didn't make sense to me about that was that he was trying to sell the property as a commercial lot, which would have included that second house.
Mm-hmm.
But he never tore that house down. He only got rid of this one. I don't know what to tell you about.
Yeah,
it's.
I think he's seen some stuff in there. I think he knows something had gone on that was not good. That's just my guess.
I like that girl likes to think it was her father. I don't think that was her father, her stepfather.
You don't?
I just went along with it. No, my gut feeling, no.
Did he kill himself in the house, though?
No, he did not kill himself in the house.
Okay.
He killed himself someplace else. I don't think it was her. I think that made sense, and at the time I was like, whoa. But when I started thinking about it, in my heart of hearts, Shannon, I have to tell you, whatever that was not human. Because you could say, okay, someone who could get stuck here, which I'm sure can happen if you commit suicide, but I don't think they turn into an evil entity. Whatever was in that house, whatever I felt that day, when that temperature dropped in that room, and then I think about that solid black shelter that just stood there and looked at me, and it had like a cloak on, and none of that was good. Like, that wasn't good stuff. And I think the only thing this day that protected my ex-wife and I and my small child and everything was the fact that, my ex-wife was, a pretty devout Orthodox Christian. I mean, I would go to church with the family. So she was more devout than me in believing. I mean, I believe. But to this day, the fact that we would get the house blessed and stuff, and, I think it held most things back. Because the minute we moved out of there, not saying that we're something special, but this guy moves in with his girlfriend and into all the Eastern mysticism and all this stuff, and things go chaotic. It's hard for me to think that was a human soul.
Yeah, and you may be on to something with that more than the cop thing. Because at first I thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. The biker, the cop, it doesn't like him. But, it may be more of a non-human entity, like, talking about a jinn or something, and the whole Eastern, everything plastered all over the walls and whatever, maybe they were practicing or talking about.
Yeah, I remember driving up the driveway, and at the head of the driveway, he had like these two, like, gargoyle-looking things, like dragons, like statues. So it was a different place when I walked in there. And I've never experienced anything like that again. Like, one time when I was in high school, but we were partying, so I might have been a little tipsy. So I can't include that. But
right. Well,
you know what I mean?
And
I had never experienced anything like that before. I mean, I've met people like who and this has helped me out with one of my jobs that I do, because I work with I've worked with the government before, the federal government before, and it's helped me in that job. But I have met a couple people in my life where when you look at them, right away they're a psychopath. There's no soul, and it's like blackness in their eyes, because the eyes really are the window to what is going on. If you know what to look for, you can tell, and those people have given me that feeling I would get in that house at times. That's how I know this wasn't a sad human soul who was lost that committed suicide. I'm 99% sure of it. And I'm glad I got my family out of there. Very safe property though,
Well,
and
and
just a mile and a half away from the Warrens.
that is very strange tie-in, by the way. I think that's extremely interesting. Okay, but the other thing though that ties in with your theory of it's not so much the cop thing, but it's the Eastern whatever kind of deal they had going on there, because you said you felt it when you walked in the house, and that ties in with the fact that you said the girlfriend was actually getting physically assaulted there, so she wouldn't even come back.
No, he was of Asian descent too. And I thought at first, like, I was like, well, maybe he's having problems. She was a very pretty girl. He was a decent looking guy, just a young, but it was just like, she wouldn't come back. He's getting slapped in the middle of the night. He's getting woken up by guitars playing. Temperatures dropping, like all kinds of, and there were phone calls with no one on the other end. They would call, he's in the middle of the night, the electronic phenomenon and all that stuff. And like I said to you, I guess in a way I was kind of a good witness to it all, because to this day, I look back at that and I say, okay, that was a set of circumstances. Yes, I can't explain them. I don't like it's hard for me to say the word paranormal or ghost. I don't like those words. I feel like they're more like circumstances that happen in a certain time, in the space fabric of time, that we just don't understand yet. There's something to it. We just don't understand it. But what I can tell you, which I was for sure of, is that it was not good. And that came from my own, I guess you would say, survival human instinct. Like, we all have an instinct when gut feeling, this is not a good situation. You know what I'm talking about. You can't explain it. Something's not right. I got to get out of here. Like, that instinct doesn't lie. So all I know is this group of things that happened set that instinct off in me. And I think back to the way my mom looked at me when I was young, when I told her about that, and was very serious. And she never talked about ghosts or anything like that. Or like that. She was a very Orthodox woman, went to church and did all that. Very, non-judgmental of anyone, didn't preach to everyone, but held her faith quietly like everyone should,
Well, maybe she had walked in the house at some point herself and felt something really dark. And then by the time you were actually voicing that, she was like, okay, that's all I need to know. Don't go back there by yourself.
And you know what? I can't believe you just said it. That's exactly how my mother would have done it. Exactly. That's so weird you just said that. It's almost like that's exactly what she would have done. Unfortunately, my mom passed at an early age from non-hospice but yeah, she was like that, and she couldn't wait for me to be done at that. She didn't want me going back there, but me being a 15-year-old, loud mouth going through puberty, says, "Oh no, listen, I'm going back. I gotta finish my job." Okay, fine. My mother was very good at raising kids. She knew I was stubborn, so she said, "Okay, that's fine. But if you go back, you have to bring a friend. You only can work there during the day."
Right.
Okay. Fair enough. I finished that job and that was it. But yeah, on hindsight, you see things and you realize things, and it's like, I can't believe that happened to me. But to this day, it's hard for me to say. I do know that it wasn't. I went along with the girl's story at first because it was believable, but I also saw how she was fearful about it, and I couldn't destroy her by saying that what was in there was not bad. I couldn't bring myself to say it.
If that made her feel better for some reason, then let her have it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to take care of your neighbor. You have to have empathy, know?
The fact that this cloaked figure looked at you omits any chance. I mean, besides the hitting and all this other stuff, there's so much evidence against a residual haunting, and it was extremely interactive.
Very. And, this wasn't, didn't you see shadow figures when you were younger or something?
Mm-hmm.
When you were, I thought I heard you one time on a talk show saying your first experience with seeing shadow figures, you were riding an ATV or something when you were younger?
Yep.
Okay, the way you described them, whatever, this wasn't, I don't know if it was like that, but this thing was solid black. This was blacker than black can be. like you couldn't see. It looked like a black hole, but it was close. It was just that I can't. That image I'll never get out of my head.
No, that's,
even as much
yeah,
as I have
John,
tried.
that's exactly how I describe mine. It was like, and mine was during the day, out in the woods, middle of the day, no clouds or anything. And I always say that it was like no light could find them. And they were darker than the deepest, darkest night with no stars. And somehow no sunshine could find these things, not even a sliver.
Yeah. Isn't that strange?
It is. And they're definitely,
but then
they're
again,
not from
I
around
hear,
here.
No, and I hear you. Like I hear your story, and I believe you. The podcast I saw, I could tell you weren't lying. I could tell. Listen, I've heard people even don't take offense to this. I've heard people call up your podcast, and I know right off the rip, this dude needs men. You know what I mean? Like, no way this happened. You know what I mean? But one of the reasons I like you is that you give everyone the benefit of the doubt. You never speak your own opinion. You just let them talk. And you know what? Even if they made it up, if that one night that made them feel better about themselves, that they have this story out there, God bless you. You did the world good, right? But then I've heard people talk on your show, including your story, where it's like, this happened. And I don't need physical. I can just tell by the way they're speaking that this happened. I ran into the same situation because sometimes I catch that Sasquatch Chronicles show with because Wes is a very good interviewer too. You actually remind me of Wes the way you interview. You just let people talk. You know what I mean? And I've heard some stories on his podcast. It's like, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. But then I've heard ones that are like, wow. And I heard this one with the dog man that was like mind-blowing. That involved a biologist, a state biologist, and it was. This guy was not lying. I heard one with a cop too. The guy there was no way he was lying. He saw what he saw, and that was it. Kind of like my situation. I have no reason to lie or come up. It's because to me, like I said, it's just a group of events that happened, and they happened. I don't know why they happened to me.
So just a couple more things though. And by the way, I knew that damn guitar would be played by something that shouldn't have been playing it. I freaking knew it when you said that guitar was sitting in that basement. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Isn't it funny how I cleaned out and redid that whole basement? Even I changed all the electrical, and I never once. Something always told me, don't touch that guitar. Leave it alone. Once again, Shannon, it was that gut feeling. I was like, yeah, I'm not going near that. You know what I mean? If you saw me in person, you would, like, I'm a big enough guy where, like, I have what they call, I guess you would call the resting bitch face. People are intimidated. Like, I'm a big dude. Like, when I walk in a room, I don't go out. Because every time I go to a bar, every guy in that bar is trying to size me up in front of the girls singing, I'm going to, it's like, no, I'm not like that, But I'm just like, I have one of those looks. So for me to be scared it's like, you get what I'm saying? It's not what I'm used to. So that guitar always because very few things that freak me out, and that guitar freaked me out.
Oh, yeah,
like, I would have rather faced the whole
it.
bar of guys wanting to beat me up than touch that guitar.
Well, I mean,
I would have said, come beat me up.
Oh, of course. I mean, look at the canine cop. Like you said, he's probably stared down the barrel of a gun or, walked into a den of drug addicts or people on meth that could have ripped him literally pieces. And this house is what scared the shit out of him.
Really quick about him, too. He contacted me a month later and thanked me for helping him. That's also how I knew that he wasn't lying. He was to that a month later. He was like, I just thought of you, and I just want to thank you for keeping your mouth shut and helping me. And what a weird. We'll probably never see each other again, but man, I'll never forget those moments. I was like, nope, me neither, and I don't want to see you again. Have a nice day.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so that flood where things were plugged into the tub and the sink downstairs. How much damage did that cause?
Apparently, it caused a lot. It ruined a lot of their stuff. I remember the guy called me up saying he had kind of a heavy accent. He said the house flooded, and he was like crying. I mean, I'm sure they had insurance that covered it all.
Well, what about the house though? What about the house itself? Did it cost the owner of the house a lot of money?
I don't know.
Okay.
I wasn't involved at that point.
Okay.
All I know is that sometime later he decided to sell the place. He fixed it after the flood. He fixed it. I know that. That I know. But then all of a sudden, he fixed it and then he donated it. It's very strange the way that happened.
Yeah, that's really
because
odd
that
to
was
me.
my thought. My thought at first was too that maybe the flooding did so much damage that it wasn't worth fixing the house. But it was. I mean, it's not like it was pouring out the windows.
Right.
I don't know. I just think it's bizarre that he donated that one but kept the other. And the funny thing is the one that he donated was 100 times better shape than the one he kept.
Yeah, that's extremely suspect. I think we both have the same idea about why that is, about why he donated that house.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, and the fact that I've tried to bug him for the past 15, 20 years to talk about this, and he won't. I mean, it's become like a joke of mine at this point when I said, "Hey, you want to talk about those ghosts?"
I mean, he's 80, so maybe as he gets on, still in age, he'll decide to finally break his silence and tell you about it. But okay, so last couple things here. Now, just to reiterate, to your knowledge, that ghost show that filmed there has never aired. You've never come across it or heard that it's ever been anywhere, even on YouTube or anything. Okay.
Nope. I looked and I looked. I did find a picture some years ago, and I could try to look for them again.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question. Was if you could, don't take a whole lot of time doing it. If there's any keywords that you want me to help you look for them.
No, I know exactly. I know exactly what I'm going to look up.
Okay. Yeah. If you find them, that would be awesome. If not, then that's fine. Now, I'll
definitely send them to you too.
But if you find them, would I be able to share them with folks, or is that just for me?
Oh, I don't care what you do. Once they're on the internet, guess what? They're public knowledge.
That is true. I just didn't know if it was tied.
Well, they know you could have found them. You could have found them yourself.
I just didn't know if it was tied to these guys.
Them with folks, I would keep my name out because they'll definitely remember me, and they're probably not happy with me if they're still around because the lawyer wrote them that letter. You know what I mean?
Well, they shouldn't have done what they did, though. That's not how to go about things.
Pissed, and I remember the landlord being in their cops too. They should know them.
Yeah,
they used to go on private property like that.
They do. Even novice ghost hunters that have nothing to do with law know not to do that. I mean, that's 101 of ghost hunting. But hey, so they made their bed with that whole situation, and that's how that goes. So, well, yeah, if you do come across those pictures, that would be amazing. If not, no big deal. But
absolutely.
Thanks so much for sharing this, John. I know that you haven't told a whole lot of people about this, so I appreciate you reaching out to me.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. I didn't know who else. I don't know what caused me to reach out. I guess I was just like, I listened to, I won't show which one it was, but, soon it's been bugging me. Actually, it's been bugging me for a couple of years to reach out to someone because I listen to all the different, I just don't listen to Sasquatch and Paranormal. I listen to all kinds of podcasts, And I was like, you know what? I got to tell this story to someone because the fact, if it was a one-time thing, I won't say anything, but the fact that it's stressed, it was a property in a house that was part of my life for over a 30-year period is what I think really makes it interesting. It was like I was eyes on the place over a 30-year period and watched all this stuff happen. It was just very bizarre.
Wasn't it kind of sad then that eventually it got donated and
every
burned
time
to the ground?
every time I drive by the property and I see it's not there, there is part of me that's sad.
Yeah.
Because, I had a lot of good times in that house too. I had my first child there, and so a lot of good things happened too, I don't know. So whatever my ex-wife always said, and my ex-wife doesn't make stuff up. The fact that she always felt like those woods, there was something in those woods. Well, I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of altar there or something. Who knows? But something that stranger things have happened. Maybe if, like you said, maybe a little trip from the Warrens Museum.
I know. You know what, John? I know what it is. The dirt floor, there's probably a tunnel that goes right to the Warrens' house in that damn locked room that had Annabelle in it. See? That's what Annabelle.
It is. I actually saw Annabelle in person. That was a strange thing, too. I did tour the museum when I was in high school. So
I appreciate you sharing your experience with me and my listeners. Thank you so much, John.
No problem.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.